On this AVNation special, we take a look at the education programs for InfoComm 2019. Comes your way June 8th through the 14th. We take a look at Tide, emerging trends, and all of the education possibilities the week of InfoComm 2019. All that and more next on this AVNation special.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is an AVNation special, education and instruction at InfoComm 2019. Tim Albright with AVNation with an InfoComm 2019 special. What we're doing is we're looking at actually the education and the content happening throughout the week, June 8th through the 14th in beautiful Orlando, Florida. With me to discuss all things education and content surrounding InfoComm, I have three fabulous people. First and foremost, an old friend who I've helped out and taught with along the way. Her name is Rachel Bradshaw, and she is from Avixa. How are you, ma'am?
I'm very well, Tim. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Also an old buddy who has had a recent transition back into integration and teaching a fabulous course during the InfoComm show. You need to check that out. Mr. Mark Coxon, welcome, sir.
How are you, Tim?
Doing well, and he is with Tangram in Southern California. Actually, you guys are in Orange County, right?
Yeah, we're Orange County, LA, Kern County, Inland Empire. So, Southern California.
Southern California. Gorgeous place to go. I was actually just there a couple weeks ago. And last but not least, a young woman who I have just recently met. Her name is Annette Robertson, also from Avixa. Welcome, ma'am.
Hi, Tim. Thanks.
Absolutely. So, Rachel, we're going to start with you, kind of a 50,000-foot view. We mentioned the fact that the InfoComm itself is June 8th through the 14th. For those of you who are attending the show floor and want to go to the exhibit floor, that's the 12th through the 14th. But things start happening on that Saturday. So give us kind of an overall, what all sorts of education and content are going to happen that week.
Oh, wow. That's a bigger question than you know, Tim. I will say that from an overall content perspective, we've tried really hard to build a program that reflects the AV industry itself. And as we all know, it's a big industry. And so the lens that we've put on it is actually the IOTA report that was developed by our market intelligence division, which has allowed us to look at the size of the market for various solutions, learning spaces, corporate applications, et cetera. And we've tried to build a program that sort of matches up with the relative size and depth of each of those markets. But in terms of what type of learning is going to happen at the show, we have a type of learning for every type of learner. So we start out with some really in-depth 3-day programs on the 8th through the 10th. Then on Tuesday, we kick into a wider variety of programming than we've ever had before at the show. We've really tried to look hard at how different kinds of people learn best this year. So there's everything from 30-minute market intelligence updates to 4-hour hands-on sessions in a new purpose-built space for active learning, to roundtable discussions that are going to be true like peer-to-peer conversations, to small group discussions, to the fabulously informative lectures and panels that we've always had at the InfoComm show, over 60 of which are going to be recorded this year as elite member content. So a massive scale and variety of programming that we hope will match up to the massive scale and variety of our industry.
Real quickly, you made reference to the IOTA report a couple times. Explain to folks who aren't familiar with that what exactly the IOTA report is.
Sure. Wait, I'm going to get it out so I don't say anything stupid.
It's the Industry Outlook and Analysis Report.
Oh, thanks, Annette. So that is absolutely right. And it's a global summary of the marketplace for audiovisual technologies across vertical markets and across regions. So it sort of summarizes what the appetite is and what the growth opportunities are for our industry across the entire world.
All right, now, Mark, you are coming back to InfoComm, obviously doing it for several years, but you're teaching us a class on Wednesday. It's a different type of class, though, than Gazentas and Gazautas. What exactly are you going to be talking about?
Yeah, so I get to come back to InfoComm and not be chained to a booth for the first year in several, which is nice. And part of that is having the freedom to participate in teaching, which will be my first time teaching at InfoComm. I did speak on behalf of Avixa kind of on this same topic in a kind of a smaller way a couple years ago. But yeah, what I'm doing is I'm trying to bring a little bit of the human psychology, biology side, the human side of AV to a class, and giving a class on using AV technology to trigger biological responses so that you get a better call to action, you get a more memorable message, all of those things that you hope an audience takes away when you speak in front of them. So just leveraging technology to actually get outcomes, which is.
So you're kind of taking the Avixa message from a number of years ago about experience and applying that not just to the customers, the people writing the check to put this AV equipment in, but also to the audience that's consuming it.
Yeah, I've said this a few times lately, but I think we forget as technology people many times, we're stuck down in the technical details of what we do, but everything is experienced through eyes and ears of a person sitting on the other end that interprets that through their brain, right? And at the end of the day, if we can use technology in a way that increases engagement and keeps people alert and from falling asleep in their chair, then the reason we're talking in the first place actually gets through to them, right? We don't stand in a room to talk to ourselves. We don't put up a TV to play a show. We're trying to have a desired impact. And so how do we use technology in a way that gets the best outcome based on what you're trying to do? And I think that's the real ROI of technology, right? Is it better productivity? Is it better memory? Is it a better retention after a training? Is it a better call to action to a sales call? Is it a more interested, engaged person who leaves, who just learned about a charity or a charitable event or a cause that they want to get involved in? And so, those are the things that we're trying to affect, our customers are at least trying to affect. And I think as AV people, it's important to know what the goal is, what the human goal is on the other side. And so that's what my class will be about.
And that one of the ways InfoComm has done, talked to what Mark's talking about is, getting the experience and getting the emotion out of AV, and that's the Tide Conference. This is the third time they've been doing it at the InfoComm show, second time for Orlando. What are some of the highlights? And it happens the Tuesday before the show, so this will be on June 11th, the Tuesday right before. It's an all-day event. What are some of the highlights of this year's Tide?
Yeah, I think that Mark made a great point about getting stuck on the technical details. The goal of Tide, what we're trying to do, is bring together the AV technologists with the creative minds that are really advancing experience design. So for Tide, we brought in speakers from different creative agencies like Wild Bites, Brightlight Immersive, Masonry Studios. They're going to share some of the installations that they've created that are producing more memorable experiences, and the ones that they're talking about are focused on interaction. So it's bringing that human component into the AV experience.
And Rachel, shameless plug, but something that you and I are doing together, or I'm doing, is hanging out on Tuesday with the same time as Tide, and that's Emerging Trends.
Mm-hmm.
This is an event that has also evolved over the last few years, and we'll be talking about kind of what the next generation of AV is going to look like. So what are we going to be talking about? Not just me, but other smart people who are smarter than me, talking about the next version of AV.
I think I'm really enormously excited about Emerging Trends Day this year. I think it's going to be possibly the best one we've ever had, because what we've done this year is something a little bit different. We're still going to do that thing that we've been doing for the past few years, where we've designed a session that you can dip in and dip out of based on your own interest. If you are at the show shopping for UCC technologies, you can come for the UCC portion of the day and it will make sense on its own, and then you can skip out and go back to Tide or attend a different session. But what we've done this year that I think is really unique and is really going to prepare people to hit the show floor running is we've divided our day up into 4 topical areas. And for each topical area, we're going to have somebody stand up and explore the trend, and then we're going to follow it up with a panel of people who are seeing this trend play out in the real world. So you're going to get high-level strategy for how the AV industry is changing, and then on-the-ground tactics for what it means for you. And the 4 parts of our Day for Emerging Trends Day are going to be first, IP as the universal language of AV, which will be in part led by our fearless panel moderator, Mr. Tim Albright. Then that's going to form a through line throughout the rest of the day where we'll talk about technology disruption in audio, display, and UCC.
So we talked about a little bit about what's happening during the show itself. Mark's teaching a class on Wednesday. Tuesday is tied as well as emerging trends, but I mentioned at the beginning of this. This starts on Saturday, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the 3 days? It's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesdays. You're kind of open to do some of these other things. What are some of these 3-day classes that people can dive into?
Sure. The 3-day is I think a really excellent opportunity, not just to dive deep into topics, but to connect with a community of people who are incredibly passionate about AV, like so passionate that they're going to spend one of the first weekends of summer in a classroom at a convention center learning about it. Like, that's a lot of passion. A lot of these courses do focus on preparing people for the CTS certification exams. So we have preparatory classes for the CTSD, the CTS, and the CTSI. But outside of that, there's a whole range of courses you can take to make you better, more awesome at your job. We have a new one this year called Essentials of Audio that I think is going to be really, really fun. It's taught by a pair of complete geniuses. It's Doug Jones from Danley Sound, and let's see, his partner in crime is Bruce Hurst from Bose.
Oh.
And they have cooked up this incredibly interactive experience for their students. They're literally going to blow things up in this class. Small explosion, for which we are able to get fire marshal approval. But you can come into this class knowing nothing about audio, and you can come out of this class with a mastery of a really complicated subject. And we also have some returning classes that, personally, I would die to attend again. Our design thinking for AV class was new last year. And this is a class that focuses on the kind of topics that Mark is going to delve into in his session on Wednesday. It's really about how to discover, concentrate, and elaborate on the end user experience first, and then design out from there. And this is another really fun class. Like, there are field trips involved. You build prototypes. There's Play-Doh. But this is play towards serious intent. It's serious play that gets you towards more empathy with your customers, and therefore a more sophisticated ability to create really creative design solutions and approaches that serve their needs. And then, beyond that, we have the classics. Like, we will teach you how to put AV on a network. We will teach you how to manage an AV staff. We will teach you how to apply project management principles to AV design projects, and how to how to optimize an equalization system in partnership with our friends at Synergetic Audio Concepts and OdCon. It's a really in-depth program. It's a really fun program, and we also have a lot of really fun surprises in store for our 3-day students this year, which I would tell you about, but then they would no longer be fun surprises.
Understood.
I would say too, selfishly, just to interject here, not selfishly for me, but just because I wanted to say something, and so I'm going to be selfish and say it, is that working with Nathan Bull at Milestone and supporting Lisa Perrine from Cibola, who are the 2 people who are teaching the design thinking course. If you have 3 days and you really want to learn how to get inside a customer's head and how to ideate, maybe how to differentiate yourself in a meeting when you're trying to sell AV services to a client, that's a course I would highly recommend going to. And I know the 2 people very well that are teaching it, and they are A+ presenters.
Yep. Sure. Jesse Fishman from the Sextant Group too. That's a 3-ring circus. I will say that if you're interested in that course, run, don't walk, because there's only about 5 spots left. But it is going to be excellent.
Well, and about that, last year, it almost felt like a risk for Avixa to put that course on, because you said it was the first year out, and there it was in the same weight was given to that as audio and IP and CTSD prep and CTSI prep. Talk for a second about the last 12 months and the reaction, and obviously it's been a positive reaction reaction from the industry for that specific class?
Well, I think that, it's hard for me to talk about this objectively, and I want to invite Annette to respond to this too, because design thinking has always been a through line in the TIDE program as well. But I think that idea of serious play is something that we're starting to really get. There are a lot of people who are really passionate about this industry, but also really serious about this industry. It's very scientific. It's very, do the formula, get the answers, check the boxes, and then you have a system that is good. But in order to have a system that is great, you need to start off with the kind of human psychology and biology principles that Mark is talking about. You need to start off from a position of empathy. You need to get out of the technology and get into the people that are using the technology. And that's what design thinking is all about. And what I think Lisa and her cohorts have done in the creation of this class is to make these principles, which can seem kind of squishy, can seem kind of soft and not particularly scientific, and put them into a framework that makes it accessible for our industry. Put it into a framework that does connect it back to the technologies and the capabilities that we're also passionate about.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And when I have spoken with Lisa, I was talking with her at ISE, and I was asking her, in this third year of the TIDE program, I'd like to kick it up a notch. I'd like to take the program to a higher level. What is the next level of design thinking work? What's a more advanced level that we can take this to? And something that Lisa said to me that I thought was so valuable was, as a design thinker, she doesn't ever think that she knows everything. She's always working on the basics. And I think whether you want to do that in a 3-day course or whether you want to take 1 day and do that at TIDE, we're going to be talking about how the basics are always applicable to designing new experiences. So you can go more in depth with that, or you can come to TIDE and get examples of people who've produced amazing experiences and talk with them about how they did it. So I think that's really the difference between a 3-day course and something like TIDE. We're bringing in the results of designers and design thinkers, and we're looking at their projects. One of our speakers built something called a sound sculpture. This came out of an idea that he had. He's a composer. He had a composition he was trying to put together, and he built a model with Legos. And something came to his mind. He's like, well, what does the blue Lego sound like? So he built 25 colored cubes, and now they light up and they make sound, and when you arrange them in a different order, they make new music, and the audience at TIDE is going to get to experience that and interact with the sound sculpture and create new music. So those opportunities for play, they give you a chance to learn something, and they give you a chance to connect with the other folks who are attending the conference in a new way that you might not be able to do if you were just sitting in a class, reading a textbook, taking a test on something.
Mark, talk for a second. You are currently an integrator, but you've also worked in different aspects of the industry as a manufacturer and other aspects. Talk for a second about this. It's not. I'm not going to call it an evolution, because that references the fact that maybe something Vixa and InfoComm is leaving things behind. They're still providing the CTSD prep, the CTSI prep, the audio preparation classes, but also adding these design elements in your class as well. Talk for a second about what that means to the integration community and what opportunities that affords them, but also to the end users that are also coming to the show. Because it was 40 to 43% last year of the audience were also end users.
Yeah, I know this is a sensitive topic for a lot of people, right? I mean, they came from NAVA and this being a very just industry focused, like we just do training on how to equalize an audio system, to being a place where end users come and walk the floor and talk to manufacturers. And some of them see that as a threat, and I don't. As an integrator, even now, I still don't see that as a threat. I see it as a huge opportunity, and this is the reason why, is that, as systems become simpler, as things become more combination pieces of hardware, and as we have a more open, purchasing environment with Amazons and e-commerce and all these things, we are no longer the purveyors of a special black box that nobody can buy anywhere else. Nor are we the only people who know how to connect two pieces of equipment together, especially if now those two pieces of equipment are sold as one piece of equipment and do the same things that four or five pieces
or no pieces of equipment, a piece of software.
Correct, or a cloud-based piece of software, right? So the landscape has changed, and for the show not to change to evolve with that would be silly, right? And so really, our value proposition as technologists, I like that term, as opposed to AV people, but our value proposition as technologists is really helping to sit down and talk with our customers about their problems and to be able to see those problems from a third-party perspective. We all know that the stepping back away from the mess that you're in and looking at it from an objective perspective is one of the most valuable things you can do, but it's very hard to do when you live it every day, right? So if you're a technology manager at a university or a corporate environment, you've been throwing, solutions at a problem for 4 years, and maybe you're making small incremental changes. To have somebody come in and look at your problem and go, wow, have you guys ever thought about solving this in a completely different way?
Mm-hmm.
And they go, wow, no, I hadn't really thought about that before. And, I've told this story a couple times, but, one of the best interactions I ever had with a customer was one who, came to me and said, my architect said, you're the AV guy I should use. What do I buy? And I said, well, what are you trying to do? And he's like, well, I'm trying to use technology to make my campus tour more interactive and more sticky, so that if students don't sign up here and they go somewhere else and come back, that they remember me. They remember our tour when they leave. And I said, you know what we should do? We should go on a campus tour together. He goes, wow, I've been here 7 years. I've never been on a campus tour. Right? So,
wow.
I mean, it's one of those things where, and I really take my experience in the museum side. On the museum side, you use AV. AV is not the star of the show. People come to the museum to see the Mona Lisa. People come to the museum to see the Sioux Arrowhead. People come to the museum to see the dinosaur bones. They don't come to watch a video on what the T-Rex looked like and what he ate, right? But we use those things in a way to supplement the actual physical artifacts, the visceral reactions that people have to the space and to the actual star of the show. And then we use them in a way to maybe spark some type of passion in them to where that person leaves and now they want to be a paleontologist or they want to be an archaeologist. I mean, how do you, when you're talking about a science museum or natural history museum or something like that, you're really talking about lighting a passion in a child most of the time, to really maybe guide their future. And I think a lot of times, we think, oh, well, that's a museum philosophy. Well, it's not. How do you make Bob at Google want to invent, the Google Home, speaker, and to create the next skills that are going to control a house or control an office, or that are going to translate, 87 languages, simultaneously for offices around the world. I mean, inspiring somebody to do that takes a lot of the same principles that it does to make a kid love dinosaurs, right? And I think too many times we think we're the guys who install the DSP, and we're not.
Yeah.
So,
and that another aspect that InfoComm and Avixa is honing in on the customer experience is the hospitality and the retail area. Talk for a second about the thinking behind going after those two specific verticals.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Those verticals, interestingly enough, throwing it back to IOTA, we know that the retail industry spends $20 billion a year on Pro AV equipment and services, and the hospitality industry spends $7 billion a year. These are folks that are using a ton of AV, and increasingly retail-specific service providers, hospitality-specific service providers, and even some end users, because more and more of those folks are winding up working for Marriott or working for Target. They're creating store experiences. We wanted to make sure that there was, in addition to all of the great technology that's on the show floor that these folks can use, we wanted to make sure that there was valuable education for them to have at the show. So within the seminar and workshop package, we have about 15 sessions dedicated to retail and another 15 dedicated to hospitality topics. These are everything from using virtual reality to train your hotel staff. We're talking about kiosks, creating more convenient and comfortable environments in hotels. wellness is a huge trend in hospitality. We have a conversation with Lutron and Bill Lally from Mode Green about designing for wellness with hotel lighting controls. On the retail side, I'm really excited. We have Michael Koch from LOC Associates. His team was responsible for developing the Samsung 837 store in New York City. He's since moved on now with LOC Associates, but he's going to talk to us about the future of the flagship in retail. I mean, that Samsung 837 is the embodiment of the future of the flagship for retail stores. So I think that's going to be a really cool conversation. We've also brought in content partners to help us with these sessions, and VMSD Magazine is one of our content partners. So their editor-in-chief is going to be talking about digital signage trends and insights in consumer retail. And one of the interactive piece that I talked about before, we'll touch on that with Tide, but that's showing up a lot in retail. And we have someone from MJD Interactive, which is a digital agency. They're talking about customization platforms for retail. So the idea that you go into the American Girl store and you walk out with a doll that looks exactly like you, they input all of that information into a screen to make it happen. So there's some really cool ways that these industries are using AV that'll be totally new things that we're talking about at the show.
And Rachel, another thing that Avixa and InfoComm has been doing for the last couple of years is inviting a lot of these folks from hospitality, from retail, onto center stage. And if you're not familiar with what center stage is, literally it's in the middle of the show floor. It's the center of the show floor. Free education every 20 minutes, I believe, Rachel. Talk about what we're going to find this year, and it happens the 12th through the 14th. And so as the show floor is open, you can go by center stage. But talk about what we'll find at center stage this year.
That's an excellent introduction. It is really exactly what it sounds like, right? It's the stage in the center. And center stage has always been a great place to go and hear incredible conversations between people doing really creative and interesting work with AV technology. This year, it's also going to be a place to go and have amazing conversations with people doing incredible work using AV technology, because something that we're doing differently this year in Center Stage and also in our seminar and workshop package is we're providing some opportunities for you to connect directly with the presenters. So for Center Stage, in terms of content, there is a lot of content investigating retail and hospitality opportunities, also live events, but I would say whatever you're passionate about, there is something on Center Stage that will be fascinating to you. Like if you really, really love audio, I would say do not miss Shane Meerbeck of Arup and Stacy Quinalty of Universal Entertainment on Friday morning. I don't want to oversell this, but they will teach you how to control people's minds using pure tones.
Okay.
You don't want to oversell it.
I'm not going to oversell it.
What time? Friday morning at what time?
Let's see. I think
because I have a teenage daughter now, so.
Well, they'll at least tell you how to attract or repel her. Let's see. Stacy and Shane are on at 10:30 a.m.
There you go.
If you are really, really interested in getting young people involved in the industry, then you got to come hear Latoya Lewis of InventU and Alicia Hendley talking about supporting and connecting student communities using AV. You will leave that session convinced that you can change kids' lives with AV technology, and you'll be right. If you really care about how job roles and definitions are collapsing within the industry, then you should come and check out John Arpino and Joseph Miklovic on Wednesday afternoon talking about the death of the AV design engineer, which we thought was a really compelling proposal when they brought it to us. And if you care about any of these things enough to not only hear people have an interesting conversation about it, but then to follow up with them afterwards, on Wednesday and Thursday, both, we're going to have two what we call Meet the Expert sessions on Center Stage, where after folks talk, you'll be able to connect with them directly and network, ask questions, share your story, get their advice. And that's going to be taking place on Wednesday at noon and then at 3:30. And then on Thursday at 3 and 3:30. And you'll be able to connect with all the speakers that day. On Friday, we're doing something even a little bit different from that. Friday is kind of particularly stacked. Like I would say if I had the power to choose to do whatever I wanted with my time at InfoComm, which I most definitely do not, On Friday, I would spend the entire day at center stage because I really want to go to every single one of those talks. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have our second of what we're calling a cohort lab, which is an ideation and design lab where we're going to throw out a problem, divide people up into groups, and have them come up with a solution to that problem and share it with the group. We're inviting some people we think are clever and smart, but walk-ins welcome, and that'll be another really good opportunity to connect with some of the amazing folks that we're having talk on center stage this year.
Very cool. All right, as we wrap up here, Rachel, I'll give it to you. How do people find out everything that we've talked about InfoComm 2019 today?
Definitely go to InfoCommShow.org. You can see the full. Program. You can see the pages for Tide, for Center Stage, for Emerging Trends Day, and for the seminar and workshop package broadly. Follow us at Avixagram on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Tim Purity. You'll see a lot of pictures of my dog. And follow us at Avixa on Twitter.
All right, very good. Mr. Coxon, thank you, sir. How do people find you and your class?
I am at AVPhenom on Twitter, so you can find me there. I've been writing a little bit in the industry, so you find me around on some of the sites out there. And then my class is on Wednesday, the 12th, so it's 9 a.m. to 11. And then we're actually having a follow-up workshop at 1 o'clock for people who want to come back and maybe talk through something specific. So that's going to be fun and interesting as well.
Very cool. All right. Annette, thank you so much. How do people find you or connect with Avixa?
Sure. So I would say if you're interested in Tide, go to tideconference.com. And in addition to information about the conference, which is going to be all day Tuesday, June 11th, and it's going to be a lot of fun, we've started publishing a Tide newsletter. The second issue is going to go out tomorrow. And so all of our news articles where we've interviewed some of the speakers, we're talking about different experience design topics and different cool projects that folks have done around the US and even internationally. Those are available at tideconference.com/news.
All right, very good. Annette from Avixa, Rachel from Avixa, and Mr. Coxon from Tangram.
Tangram.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Tim Albright. For more information about us, go by the website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv, and you can follow along as we also hit Orlando, June 12th through the 14th, and bring everything on the show for all that and more at AVNation.tv.